Hello, everybody, on YouTube and on Facebook and in our Facebook group. This is our first live wine club tasting. So just to let you know that we've created this wine club with Wise Bartender because there's lots of people who talk about alcohol-free beers out there and they're sharing all of the great new beers that are out there. But nobody's been talking about the wines yet. And I know that everybody's interested in the wines, but they've tried some, they don't like them, you may have been put off, but actually there's lots of really good, lovely new wines coming through. And so Christine and I thought we should talk to you about all the new wines coming through. So, Christine, I think I need to let people know who you are because I wanted to do the wine club, but you really don't want to be taught by wine by me because I'm a very, even when I was drinking, though I like to pretend I was a sophisticated wine drinker, I really wasn't, and so I wouldn't be able to tutor you very well. But I've now known Christine for a couple of years. Tell us a bit about your background, Christine, and what makes you a wine expert.
Well, I was head of wine for a big international restaurant group for 18 years, Laura. So I certainly got some wine knowledge doing that. I've done lots of wine exams. I've trained a lot. I'm a wine educator. And I've got a lot of experience of the transition from wine to wine without alcohol and all drinks without alcohol, really, because it was a really big project I did about 6 years ago when I was still at Hakkasan, which was the group I worked for. So for me, it's always been really interesting to see, can you drink alcohol-free drinks that do the job of wine? So that's a bit of a passion.
Yeah, absolutely. And we won't always be exploring de-alkalized wines in the wine. We'll be bringing you new and exciting things that go with food and on that wine occasion. I also have to say that Christine was one of the key judges on the Low and No Awards for Imbibe magazine and has come and spoken at a lot of trade events for us to educate all of the sector about Low and No. So you've been there, Christine.
Thank you, Laura.
I can hear some pride. Yes, yeah. It is amazing. So this is what we need to know. So we've got 4 wines for you today. We'll take you through a journey from white through to red and then something in that wine occasion moment. We've got the very cautious Riesling, which is from South Africa.
No, well, it's actually grapes from Australia, but made in Belgium.
Okay, this is why Christine is here. And then we've got the Adnam's Garnacha Rosé.
Yeah, which is from Spain.
And then we were going to bring in the binary Botanical actually after the very cautious Riesling.
Yeah.
In there.
Yeah.
And then finally we've got a red that I've actually chilled slightly.
Yeah, I have.
So we can talk about that as we go along. So let's start with the very cautious. The very cautious one, I actually really like their name and their branding. It's so I can hold it up.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to open mine, and I'm sure, Christine, that you've already opened yours.
I have. There's a story behind the name, actually. So although it's not, you can't see it particularly anywhere on the bottle, you can see that it's Australian grapes and made in Belgium. But actually, it's not just Australian grapes. There's a great producer in the Yarra Valley called Botanical. I've visited them in the past, and they're quite big. They make a lot of wine, but their most famous wine is actually a dessert wine, and it's called the Noble One from Noble Rock, which makes wine sweet. And calling this the very cautious one. And actually the label, it sort of says the cautious one, and then the very is, up at the top. So there's the Noble One and the cautious one. And I think that's quite cute. So that's really, for people who do or have drunk wine, they might realize what's going on there. So it's a cute name.
It is, and it's I think it's a very humorous name, which goes definitely makes me laugh a little. So how should we be smelling this, and what should we be?
Well, this is made from two types of grapes, which are both known as aromatic grapes. So Gewürztraminer, which is a bit of a mouthful. Most of the wine trade just calls it Gewürz, and Riesling. And if they sound a bit Germanic, well, that's true. Yes, you find them in Germany and Austria, and also in Alsace in France, but all over the world. And actually, a bit of a clue, Gewürztraminer, there is a Traminer grape, and the word Gewürz is the word for spicy, so spicy Traminer grape. So it gives you an idea what you might expect. But I think this is very much in the mold of a Gewürztraminer wine. So if you watch wine people, they always swish the wine around, and we've both got a wine glass, and the thing about a wine glass is you never fill it. You always leave that.
Really?
Come on, no, you refill it often, but you don't fill it to the top, okay? Because you've got space there for all the aromas to come up. And now the challenge, of course, is that in a wine, the alcohol brings the aromas up, but this hasn't got alcohol. But there's plenty of aromas.
This is 0.0 as well, so it's
it's clever stuff. It is very clever stuff, yeah. And
I have to say that when I smell this, sometimes when I smell an alcohol-free wine or de-alcoholized wine, it definitely doesn't smell like the thing that I remember, although that is 9 years ago for me now. But this smells like wine that I remember.
Absolutely. And actually, I got a confession here. You mentioned that I'd been on a judging panel with you. I subsequently did some more judging just of the alcoholized wines, but it was blind. I don't know if people know what blind is, when you have something in your glass but you don't know the name of it, or you can't see the bottle, so all you can focus on is the liquid. And I spent a day tasting some of the alcoholized wines, and unbeknownst to me, this was my top white. So it's a very good.
No alcohol. Was that in a low or no alcohol?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and it wasn't just me. We were a panel of judges, and it's because it's so like wine, I think.
So what should we be smelling on the nose, Christine?
For me, I get rose petals and some citrus, perhaps some orange zest, but particularly some rose petals, which is a very Gewürztraminer grape thing. Riesling is more kind of apricots and citrus. Gewürztraminer is more floral, and I think this is quite good. It's a bit like if you imagine rose water and orange juice, and you're sort of sniffing between the two of them. I think that's kind of
definitely very. I don't know. It feels very honeysuckle to me in the smell.
Yeah, honeysuckle. Yeah. That's a good description.
And I have to say, never before have I appreciated chilling my wines properly than when I've got alcohol free. Without a doubt, they come into their own really well chilled, and also with food. So
definitely.
Eating during this session.
Yeah, this is lovely though. This is so nice, isn't it? I mean, it's really refreshing. It's actually very summery. So we're just past midsummer. I think it's quite a good one. But the traditional kind of thinking with Gewürztraminer wines, Riesling wines, is that you would put them with kind of spicy or Asian food. And in fact, I used to use this sort of thing, but with alcohol in, quite a lot at Hakkasan with the Chinese food. But the interesting thing, if you went to Alsace in France, they would drink this with choucroute, or a big meaty dish. So I think think sometimes we get the wrong idea about, what you can do with wines, but this is quite a food friendly wine, I think.
Going alcohol free, finding the wine you enjoy is more important than the exact pairing with food.
Exactly.
Because it's about feeling like you're part of the moment and part of the occasion.
Yeah.
And you don't want to go, well, I'll have a bit of a red that I don't particularly like because this is a dish that red goes with. And instead you want to go, well, this is a wine that I really, really like and it will enhance whatever food I have.
That's brilliant, Laura. I wish you'd been around when I was trying to teach sommeliers, actually. Because that's the thing, everyone, I used to get a bit fed up with everybody saying to me, what's your ideal food and wine pairing, and, what should you drink with this food? And I used to say, drink what you like. It's very rare that it will be a disaster, and if it is, you'll have learned something, but drink something that's going to give you pleasure.
Most drinks go with most things, and then there are some drinks which suddenly elevate your meal. But it doesn't mean that drinks don't go with food, because they do. All drinks do, from cider all the way through. I really like this because it's also not heavily chlorine. It's not it doesn't feel like it's been, because I know when they de-alkalize wine, they take out the alcohol, and then they have to add things back in to add flavor, and sometimes that can be a very heavy grape juice.
Yeah,
I'm getting that sense with this. It still feels very light.
Well, if you do it well, when you de-alcoholize wine, first of all, you would take out the aromatic component and put it to one side. So you would, it's a kind of distillation. You'd take off some of those beautiful aromas. Then you would strip out the alcohol, but then you've got something to blend back in, which is those lovely aromas. So if it's done skillfully, this is what you get, something that is very aromatic but is also fresh, and it's not too sweet either.
No, and I think I like it. It's you're right, it's floral and slightly fruity. It's feeling very summery. It's worth saying that this is vegan and gluten free.
Yeah, and they say sustainable, and I would support that, because when I visited de Bortoli in Australia in the Yarra Valley, they actually go quite a long way beyond sustainable. They try really hard, with their grape growing and their winemaking. And another thing that's actually really good, I've had people say to me, but isn't it a bit strange, that they might grow the grapes in Australia and then make the actual drink in Belgium? But the most environmentally friendly way to move a drink around the world is not to bottle it till you get it to where it's going. Yes. So that's sustainability credentials as well, which is nice.
I have to say, I'm a really big fan. I'm really glad you brought this to us. It's
This I honestly, I think I'll probably just drink the rest of this tonight. This is just so easy, put your feet up.
Like I said, it's not too sweet. It's not cloying in any way. It's beautifully chilled, perfect summer wine. It's not been out for very long. This range.
Yeah.
They do have a red. They do have another white, I think. Is that right?
I'm not sure actually. We'll have to have a look and see. Won't we? Yes, they have. I think they have a Shiraz, which we might try another time.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely be trying some more of these. I was just going to have a look through the Wise Bartender website to see what the other colours are, but they definitely have some, and some others, and they've got a Shiraz, a Riesling, but I don't think they've got a rosé yet. So
I don't think so, but we might have a look at the Shiraz one. But this is definitely, you don't need food with this, and I'm always into occasions. I think this is a catching up on the Crown on Netflix wine or de-alcoholized wine. And it's interesting, we can talk about at some point whether they can put the word wine on the bottle, because this doesn't, but we've got another one coming which does say wine. So all very
for consumer, this is going to be a big fight that's going to go on in the industry, because obviously words like wine and whiskey and rum and stuff, and now people are going, well, you can't possibly call that if it's got no alcohol in it. So, but from a consumer point of view, you don't care, right? You want a really good drink and you want a wine. So
I mean, seriously, you know, it looks like wine, it tastes like wine, it's made largely like wine, but then a bit more is done to it. You know, if I have difficulty not calling it wine, and I'm supposed to, you know, I'm supposed to be a professional working in this field, but hell.
well, we'll leave that fight for other people. What we'll do,
I think so. I think so.
Wine occasion. Next is Binary Botanical, which is an awesome bottle here. You've got but so I have to confess that we had a cocktail session last Wednesday, and we had a disaster delivery, and so I ended up having to use our bottle in the Queers That Beers cocktail class. But Binary Botanical is actually one of my favourite alcohol.
Oh, absolutely.
But why is it here, Christine? Because it's clearly a beer.
It's not a wine. This has got even less credentials in one sense to be a wine than any of the others here. But hold your horses. I think this has really got something to offer for a wine drinking occasion. So, okay, I mean, it's technically, it's a beer. Okay, you can see the bottle it's not quite a beer bottle. It's not quite a wine bottle. It's got a crown cap on it. I think the label is a bit nicer than most, you know, beer labels. And actually the label is a clue to what's going on here, because you've got this lovely illustration of hop leaves. And they've done something really clever here. And it's the Good Living Brew Company. And it's the one of the four which was actually founded and created by a woman, which is, you know, about the proportion you normally get with wines, to be honest. Danielle Becker. It's made in Surrey and it's made in a brewery. So, you know, we've got something that is essentially a beer, but it's very, very different, I think, from a beer. I like beer, but this is definitely a wine-like beer. It's a beer for wine drinkers. And why? Well, they did something really, really clever. So most people know that hops are used in making beer. And the hop flowers have this really bitter resin in them. It's amazing. That's what gives beer its bitterness, its tangy flavour. But what they've done with Binary is they've used leaves, okay? They've used the hop leaves, which are not bitter, and they have this really delicate, tangy flavour, quite different from what you get in an ordinary beer. And I think it's absolutely brilliant. They described it, when I first met Danielle, she was talking about it as a bit like an alternative to Prosecco. And I think that's quite a good point. I mean, you can see it's a bit of a darker colour, but it's got a fizz to it. But there's something else there as well, which I think is going to draw in a lot of people who perhaps do still drink wine or don't drink but used to drink wine, because I think there's a really sort of Sauvignon Blanc-like character to this.
Yeah, it's definitely, because I wasn't a beer drinker when I was drinking, and so drinking beer is new to me, and I definitely don't go for the very heavy ones. But when I got this, it felt very light. It didn't have that astringency that you get with a bitter taste, and it just went really well. And we actually had it in I got some vouchers for a Michelin starred restaurant, and they actually served it there, and we got a bottle and we shared it between us, just like you would a bottle of wine.
Nice, yeah.
Like, you know, and then we moved on, you know, we had something else the next course, something else the next course. But even their small bottles, you can share between two of you. It creates a nice glass. They served it properly in a wine glass.
Yeah.
So,
well, they made it to drink with food and to be the wine lover's beer. And I think, I know you haven't got your glass there, I feel a bit sorry. But if we do the swirling it round and sniffing typical, and I've served it obviously in a wine glass. The thing that jumps out at me is a peach character, that sort of peach skin character. And to me, that screams Sauvignon Blanc. It's exactly like something from New Zealand. So it's really going to work for people in that way, I think. And then drinking it, tasting it, I think that's where the Prosecco analogy comes in.
It's got a slightly biscuity taste, isn't it? Is that sort of that I used to like about a Prosecco, where it had that dry biscuit finish. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. Although actually you'd associate the biscuity flavour more with champagne than with Prosecco. So so I think Daniel's missed a trick then. It's like a cross between a champagne and a Sauvignon Blanc. Shall we settle on that?
Go on then.
Yeah.
And it's just got the right amount of bubbles, which means that you don't speed drink it. So it's not like, well, hey, it's not like a lager, which you go, oh, it's a refreshing lager, let's drink it quickly. It's got enough what I would call speed humps in it for people to
definitely. Yeah, I like that.
The speed humps.
That's brilliant. I love that. I wish that you had been around when I was teaching sommeliers about wine.
Well, because I mean, it's interesting. I drank alcohol quite quickly, and then I haven't really slowed down what I drink. But now that it's not alcohol, I'm not, after the next glass and the next glass and the next glass like I was. So I don't want my drink to go too quickly, because then I'm left with nothing in my hand or nothing with my meal. And I'm very good at drinking quite quickly and eating quite quickly these days. And so anything that slows me down is really helpful. And for me, that's what distinguishes, an adult alcohol-free drink from a soda.
Absolutely.
That you drink it quite quickly, but an adult alcohol-free drink has to have enough speed humps in for me.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, I was just sitting here thinking, the curse of the soft drink. You can just pick up a soda or a soft drink, and you can just drink it, and everybody else is still sipping their wine. But this is I love the binary botanical. Oh, and the word binary comes from the bine, the hop vine. Hops grow on a vine, which is sort of the stem that wraps its way around the poles. If you've ever seen hops growing. So I love the way that it's a beer that's themed around hops and yet actually delivers a wine-like experience. So fantastic job, Danielle and the team at Good Living Group. Really good.
The whole team behind Binary. They're very it's great in cocktails as well, by the way. So rather than topping up your cocktail with a tonic or a soda. The cocktail classes last week, topping it up with a Binary Botanical, it just adds another flavour element that's really lovely. And you can just create a lovely cocktail using Jimba and Binary Botanical and a few extra little bits, and you've got a perfect, lovely cocktail. So as a good all-rounder, actually, that's where
but it definitely has a place in in this tasting because of its wine-like credentials, I think. So
and they've got some nice small bottles. You can fit one in your bag if you go out. Demand that they serve you and that they let you have your own drink there. So that also helps.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to move on to the Adnam's Garnacha. Garnacha. Because Garnacha is what you put on a cake, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's Grenache. So Grenache and Garnacha are the same grape, but the French call it Grenache and the Spanish call it Garnacha.
Oh.
And it's not ganache that goes on a cake. So it's a red grape. It's a red grape.
This is where you come to. So I've never understood rosé wine. Christine, what is it? Is it just red and white grapes smashed together?
No, it's not. It's not. And here, this is all made from one type of grape, Garnacha. the simple way to think about it is that you take a red grape, but you make it like a white wine. So the key difference between when you're making a white wine and a red wine, the white wine, you pick the grapes and you crush them, and then you take the juice off, which they call the must, and you ferment that. But with red wine, you crush the grapes, but you don't press them. You just crush them and you leave the juice from the grapes to soak up all the colour from the skin. Because I think what surprises a lot of people is if you take a red grape and peel it, what's inside looks like a white grape. The colour is entirely in the skin. So what happens with a rosé wine is that they don't let the juice sit on the skin for ages, and they don't leave the skins there, during fermentation, which is what they would do for a red wine. So the red colour doesn't get pulled out of the skins nearly as much as it would for a red wine. But Garnacha grapes you can make a red wine from, and in fact it's one of the grapes in Rioja, believe it or not. So this is 0.5%, and this one says on the back, it says de-alcoholized Garnacha wine-based drink, and it has a vintage, which I think is a nice touch. This is actually wine from 2019 that has been de-alcoholized. That's the process here.
But let's be clear, they're calling it a wine-based drink because wine doesn't really allow them to call it wine.
That's right. And I mean, Adnam's is it's a British company. They're in Southwold in Suffolk, and they're brewers. They don't, as far as I know, they don't actually have their own vineyards and wineries, but they source wines from places around the world. If anyone from Adnam's is listening and says I'm wrong, please let me know. But that's my understanding.
They make their own brand of nearly everything from.
Yeah, they do. They do.
If you're in the east of England, you will know there's lots of Adnam shops, but also lots of Adnam pubs that sell their own brand.
Yeah.
I think from rum through, and I don't make all of it directly them immediately.
Yeah. And I think the thing about Adnam's is they are going to follow the regulations to the letter. They're not in business to play fast and loose with the rules. And the rules say that if you've taken the alcohol out, it's not wine. So they call it a wine-based drink, which is absolutely right.
And you notice that Gordon's have done that with their gin. It's a gin-based drink, and their Tanqueray. They've done it with both of those. So just in case you're wondering, that's why. I'm getting sort of raspberries and a bit lychee.
Nice one. I'm getting strawberries, which is famously what you associate with the Garnacha grape. I'm
just like, I get red fruits.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. There you go.
I said, "Oh, raspberry," and they went, "No, strawberry." I went, "Oh, okay then."
No, Laura. Okay, so we all smell and taste something different. Okay, and wine tasting notes, any kind of tasting notes, they are an attempt to speak the same language about different things. So you smell raspberries, I smell strawberries. I learned once that a bottle of wine has about 2,000 different compounds which are aromatic and create beautiful aromas, and the aroma for raspberry, the aroma for strawberry will be there. It just depends which one you pick up. But red fruit.
I want an interview from Tom from Adnam's about wine and tasting wine. He says you definitely, first have one sip and coat your mouth, and then have a second sip. Don't just, taste it like you would any other wine. Take your time, have a few sips. It will take a while for your taste buds to attune to a wine.
I think that's fair. For me, the thing that's different, I'm a typical wine person. I've got my little spittoon ready, but I'm not spitting anything out because I don't have to. When you're tasting wines, you really do have to spit them out, but no problem here.
And like I said, I've always been a bit biased against rosé. I don't know whether it's because it's pink and, I don't know. But
no, I love rosé.
Many things in my life since giving up drinking, lots of things have changed. And again, this is, I'd probably, have this alongside a nice dessert. It is sweeter than the Riesling. It is what you expect from a rosé, isn't it? Which is a slightly freshy, fruity taste.
Well, I think there's more than one type of rosé. This is people who've come from liking things like Californian blush rosés, blush wines, or another classic sweet one, Rosé d'Anjou, that kind of thing. So there's a tradition of rosés that have a bit of sweetness, but then in Provence there's a tradition of bone dry rosés. This is in the style of the sweeter ones, and it's something that the Garnacha grape does very well. It's a grape that gets very ripe and produces a lot of sugar. So it's quite a natural thing that you can make a wine from it that has a bit of sweetness. But it's not sweet. It's got a gentle sweetness, hasn't it?
It's definitely not pow. It's not like a power of sugar. It's very light and delicate. And definitely, even if you're somebody who likes to fill up a wine glass, maybe even with some ice in it, dare I say, then really, really nice to have. I also, there's a little bit more body to this as well. It's got a really nice sort of mouthfeel to it as well.
Yeah. I think in wine terms, the thing that the experts always look for is balance. And they can mean several things, but one of the things they mean is that there's some acidity and that balances any sweetness. And I think that's what happens here. I think there is sweetness, but it's not cloying in any way. It's refreshing. It's quite zesty, and it's got that lovely breadfruit character.
And this is the thing, right? I think the challenge for alcohol-free wines is that, for beer, you're dropping, by, 3-4% to get an alcohol-free beer. So the drop isn't so big. From, 12-13% down to 0.5 is a big old drop. And so they've got to do all sorts of things to create back that balance and flavour and body.
Yeah. I mean, this is why historically, the alcohol-free wines have not been very good quite often. And I think it's why people have sometimes tried them and been scared off. The big difference is the techniques in use now. There are some really clever technical ways to remove the alcohol. And, there's beginning to be some really good skill applied as well, which I think we're seeing in these tonight, particularly in the last, all of them. But I think the last one's going to be quite interesting from that point of view.
Yeah.
When we get there.
There's definitely a lot more to explore, but also give some time to, if you've just given up drinking alcoholic wine, you go straight to alcohol-free wine, you will notice the difference without a doubt. It's not giving all of those things that wine did. You give yourself a little bit of a break, like I have, from drinking any wine, and then come back to alcohol-free wine because your taste buds change. Also, you have to appreciate them as just a good drink in their own right, and not try and compare. People always want us to do comparisons between an alcoholic and alcohol-free, and in wine, it's even more dangerous because, it is different. It hasn't got the alcohol in, and alcohol is a big, enhancer and body creator and preserver and all of those things. But it doesn't mean these aren't good. It just means you might have to retune your taste buds and retune your expectations. You're not going to get a big, alcohol hit very quickly in your dopamine centers as well.
Yeah, but these are delicious drinks, and I think you'd be very comfortable drinking these, around people who are drinking wine with alcohol in, around food, or just to relax in the evening. The classic wine moment, and I think that's what's so good here that these are enjoyable, and these do have enough character to remind you of the things you like about wine. I think
it's good because what you've done today has made me slow down a bit and taste them properly rather than going, oh no, it's too sweet, oh no, it's too dry, and do it really quickly.
Yeah.
Always slow me down. This is a theme of this tasting. Okay, so next we've got the Ariel Cabernet Sauvignon, which actually has a cork in it. I had to get used to just go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a very, very interesting drink. It probably looks the most like a traditional bottle of wine. It's got a really good quality cork with the name of the wine on it. And actually the label here, they call it a premium de-alcoholized wine. So
because they're from America and they're mean.
It's from America, and they can, their rules there are different and more relaxed. But this is a super interesting product, not least because it's one of the oldest of the de-alcoholized wines, certainly the oldest that we're trying tonight.
It's the first that I ever tried because there wasn't anything else. It was one of the first at our festival because they didn't come themselves. They came with one of the alcohol-free shops. It was one of the first I tried that made me think, oh, maybe they're not too bad.
Yeah. Well, I think it's extraordinary. But again, a bit like the very cautious one, Ariel, although it doesn't say on the label, it's Ariel Vineyard is owned by a company called J. Lure, which is quite a well-known wine producer in sort of California's central coast, and they've got masses of vineyards. They've got about 3,000-4,000 acres between that bit of the Pacific coast between Monterey and Paso Robles. So really between San Francisco and LA. And it's funny, in my old life buying wine for Hakkasan, when the restaurant opened, the very first wine list in 2001, the red wine by glass was a J. Lure wine called Wildflower. And to me, there's so much similarity with this. And that was why I chilled it, actually, because I was used to chill the Wildflower. But, it really, really suits being chilled. But just start with this. If you were tasting kind of, seriously, and which we are, of course, you would look at the colour. And this has a fantastic colour. And I have to say, they've done an amazing job here, because you talked about how difficult it is, to take so much alcohol out of wine. It's probably the product that suffers the most from de-alcoholization. But actually, red wine is the most difficult of the three, because the color is really associated with the alcohol extracting the color, and it's also that you expect a lot of body and character from a red wine. So this
one, you can't. Some of the reds you can see through.
Some of them are kind of, I'm holding it up to the light. Some of them are kind of, not far beyond rosé, are they? But this is a real red wine colour, no doubt about it.
All right, so I drank a lot of red wine, Christine. When I smell this, it hits all of those memories. Yeah,
but the other reason is that they use oak barrels. So if anyone's not sure what the flavour of oak is, it tends to be vanilla is one of the things. You might get vanilla. In America, you might get coconut aromas, spices. So there's lots and lots of different ways the oak can be treated before the wine goes into it. But you get that nice
0.5%, so you can begin to see that in the body.
Mm-hmm.
So again, yeah, and I haven't. So yes, I can smell the oaky. I can smell, you know, that nice little bit of ribenery sort of dark berries in it.
Yeah, yeah, and it really delivers that kind of, you know, Californian, lots of oak, lots of ripe fruit experience, doesn't it?
It's been a while since I've tried the Ariel, and I'm just like, oh, yes, good. This is really, really good.
Mm-mm. I think it's terrific. I think it's absolutely terrific. But like I say, this one's been going since 1985. And I read up about it because I knew quite a bit about J. Law, but I didn't know as much about Ariel. But apparently, the first time one of their wines won a medal when it was judged blind against alcoholic wines was 1986. So they've obviously been getting it right for a long, long time. And if there were some other fascinating things. Apparently, they had a big link with one of the first ever celebrity chefs, Graham Kerr. You're not old enough to remember Graham Kerr, the Galloping Gourmet.
Not quite.
Yeah, well, I was a child, you know, I mean, but my mum would remember. So they, you know, they had that kind of wine and food thing going back in the early 90s. And they, you know, the grapes are selected from the J. Law vineyards. The J. Law team makes the wine. And it's got, again, this has got nice credentials for sustainability, actually, because it's a solar-powered winery, one of the kind of biggest solar-powered wineries that you'll find. 90% of their power comes from the sun. So, you know, there's some nice things going on behind this wine. It's got some history and tradition, and it's got some real winemaking skill. You know, it's made by the same people that make the, you know, the J. Law red wines. So.
I'm just excited by sort of the body, but also because I can just feel the tannins inside my mouth.
Yeah.
An alcohol-free red for a long time. I must have done when I tried this the first time.
Yeah.
And sorry, can I ask a question? Because these are all dealkalized in different ways, actually. So this is a cold filtration system, which I don't really know much about. Do you know much about that, Christine? Or
yeah, so I think that's a bit of it's not a misnomer, but it's the technical name for it is actually reverse osmosis. Okay, so there's a couple of very technical ways that are relatively recent. When I say relatively recent, you know, the last 20, 30 years have become started to be used. And so the first, have I got it right? The first wine, I think, no, the Garnacha, the rosé, that's made by spinning cone, which is a kind of a vacuum steam distillation. And it does use a little bit of heat, although not a lot. Whereas reverse osmosis doesn't use heat. So therefore they like to call it cold filtration. You know, it's that cold pressed kind of, you know, it sounds good, but it's very clever. It's a kind of, if you remember biology at school, when you had to learn about, you know, how your kidneys worked, it's reverse osmosis. It's a kind of clever filtration, effectively. And it's expensive, expensive machines, but, you know, they've done a really good job of it. Really, really good.
And Christine, you know, because unlike alcoholic wine, I won't drink this in quite the same quantity of an evening. So how long would you open these for? And, you know, we chilled slightly the red, but would you keep them in the fridge? Do they last longer in the fridge? What's the best way to keep them?
I would keep them in the fridge. And actually with the Ariel, they suggest that once it's open, you should keep it in the fridge. I think you said it earlier, alcohol is a preservative. So, you know, you've got to help these drinks along a little bit. You know, they're not designed for sort of, you know, standing round on a sort of a sunny table all day. I think I have to think the Ariel tastes really good chilled too. In terms of how long you'd keep them open, well, I tried it. I tried these last week, and without any kind of preservation system, they were all good for a couple of days. The Ariel probably kept the best. The cautious one, that after a couple of days I could start to notice, a change in how it tasted. That's not unusual for an aromatic style, though. With an aromatic wine, you would get that same sort of thing happening. What you could do is use there's lots of preservation systems now. You can get those stoppers and the little pump that takes the air out, Huh?
And they work, do they?
Yeah, they'll give you an extra couple of days, yeah.
The gadgets.
You could also use, there are more expensive gadgets and gadgets that put inert gas in, or, CO2 or all that kind of stuff. You could do that. So that would be fine. But I mean, from my point of view, I think these are all really good value and really drinkable, and you don't have to worry about the alcohol. So I don't think they would last very long around me anyway, I think.
So, give them a good, I think the Ariel says 5 days and keep it in the fridge. And so, and obviously binary would lose its fizz if you left it too long.
Yes, it would. It would. I think it would actually still taste fairly good. But I think, in order of how quickly I would drink them, given that they're all open now, I'll probably drink the binary first, then the cautious one, then the Garnacha, and then the Ariel, the Cab Sauv.
And then actually you can always use them for cooking, which I also do. So
yeah. Hence the links with Graham Kerr, the Galloping Gourmet, that we're all too young to remember.
Well, I'm really pleased to be reacquainted with this Ariel, because it I think the last time I tried it was at our festival in 2017. So
wow,
pleased. That's fantastic, Christine. So basically, this is our first wine club tasting. I know that lots of people will be watching this after the event, and we'll be sharing the video out tomorrow and so on. If you want to join the wine club, you can go on wisebartenders.co.uk and find all the details of the wine club on there. And we'll be putting next month's event up. Me and Christina just discussing the wines now. They are becoming, but I think they're beginning to come a bit thick and fast, Christine. I have to say, I've been to contact me about all sorts of drinks. So I think this is going to be an exciting journey, and I'm really excited that we could do that together. So do join the club for next month. We're hopefully going to talk to lots of wine producers and begin to really make these sessions fun. So thank you for being here for our first one. Got any questions, stick them underneath the video. I'll come back to them and I'll ask Christine. And if there are any technical questions, you clearly don't want my answers. So.
Questions would be great. Yeah, would be nice.
We'll try and keep you as informed about low and no alcohol wine as possible.
Yeah.
Time, Christine. All right.
Okay. Thanks, Laura.